We're on.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cowbell Kingdom podcast here on cowbellkingdom.com. Episode number 2 that we're doing live, and we're slowly working this out as we go, but everything's been going super smooth so far. We've really enjoyed the ability to be able to talk directly to you guys, have you guys directly commenting with us and joining in on the conversation right away. Also, we are continuing to post this online on Podbean and on Audio Boom, not Podbean. On Audio Boom, and we'll continue to just have our podcast continue to go out there in the format that we've done for the past couple of months. But as we grow, we're happy that you can grow along with us, and we're excited to have you along for another ride as we have plenty to talk about here as the Sacramento Kings just returned home from a 5-game Eastern Conference road trip. We got Kings basketball back in Sacramento beginning tomorrow night when they host the New Orleans Pelicans. But before that, my name is Matt George from KHTK, joined by the man of Cowbell Kingdom himself, Leo Beas. Leo, my friend, how you been?
Get your popcorn ready, Matt, because I'm ready.
Oh, boy. I should have popped some now that I think about it. You can see, welcome to my home. You can see my background here. There's my front door. There's my TV, and that's really all you need to know except for the Raiders chair. But, yeah, this is just something that we're excited to be able to bring to you and excited to be able to do and talk about. And really, Leo, there is so much to talk about here as we approach the return of basketball to Sacramento, which I think could not have come at a better time. And with the return to Sacramento, we see the return of Darren Collison. So we'll talk about really how he's going to fit into the team, what we would like to see from him, where we think he should be in terms of starting lineup or coming off of the bench. For those who read my article that came out a couple hours ago on Cowbell Kingdom, you know how I feel about it, but you'll get Leo's take, and we're anxious to get some back and forth with many of you as well. We'll also talk about the road trip a lot because I can be Nancy negative at times, and there were a lot of negatives for me on that road trip, things that I certainly want to hash out there and talk about, because I feel like there needs to be some brutal honesty and some accountability that goes around the Sacramento Kings. I know, Leo, you were telling a lot of people to calm down, it'll be fine. Then, of course, everybody picks the Kings to beat the Toronto Raptors, right? I mean, that was a shoo-in after getting completely destroyed by the Milwaukee Bucks. Yeah, it was a shoo-in to beat the Toronto Raptors, but it's good that the Kings got a road victory and were able to bring at least one home, as they do go 1-4 on that road trip. Leo, first thing I'm going to ask you as we start this conversation off, if I was to ask you, give me one major pro and one major con from this road trip, what would you say?
One major pro is that Rudy Gay is very important, vital to the Kings, and one major con is that this team lacks rebounding and it needs to get better ASAP.
I would totally agree, especially with the first one, and that's something that I tweeted out after the win in Toronto, which Rudy Gay was phenomenal in, by the way. Rudy had just a great showing, and something that, these are the kind of performances we can expect and we have grown to expect out of Rudy Gay, and he's certainly showed us that. And like you've been saying, and like there have been articles on Cowbell Kingdom that suggest defensively the Kings are a lot better when Rudy Gay is on the floor. A lot of people still don't like necessarily him as a defensive player because they don't necessarily always see 100% effort, but it's the plain truth. And if Rudy Gay were helping to guard against Antetokounmpo and the rest of the wingers of the Milwaukee Bucks game, it probably would have been a very different outcome. Would the Kings have won that game? Probably not, but they certainly would have been a lot more in it than they were.
That and the fact that they would have been competitive as opposed to getting blown out by 30 points. And that would have maybe calmed the waters a bit that night, because fans were just going overboard and just blowing things out of proportion. And that's why I had to go on Twitter and say, calm down and relax. It's only one game. The Warriors lost the night before to the Los Angeles Lakers by 20-plus points. It's one single game. It happens. It's going to happen more than once. It's going to happen about 5 times this year. And you're going to have those type of reactions because fans are going to be fans. And it's our job to put out perspective and really calm the waters, because this team has been together for less than 10 games, and they have 9 new players on this roster, and they have a new system, a new coach, and there has to be patience, Matt. And that's something that I get from fans. They are frustrated. They're frustrated because they've been dealing with 10 years of mediocrity. I get it. But at times, people go overboard by saying we have to fire Vlade Divac or this team has no talent. whoa, 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 whoa. And it's my job to calm them down and just put out some perspective, which is what we did yesterday with that great article from Anthony. And then you wrote one today. So, it's all about perspective, and it's about being fair. And if you want to fire Vlade or say that the team has no talent, you're not being fair and you're not being realistic, because the Kings have been competitive every single game except for that game, which they didn't have a Rudy Gay.
And I will be the first one to admit that I was one of them that was maybe a little bit in panic mode, which is acceptable, in my opinion, based off of two things. And one of the things you brought up was 10 years of mediocrity. Sure, roster-wise, this is a different team, but my take on this whole thing is I don't think the Sacramento Kings have the luxury or even deserve the luxury of fans giving them a complete slate clean, fresh start. Now, maybe individually, Dave Joerger deserves that kind of start, but not when the Sacramento Kings core is, for the most part, the same. You still have DeMarcus Cousins. You still have Rudy Gay. My takeaway from this road trip was I still haven't been given enough, and yes, it's early, but I have not been given any reason to believe that this team will be different than it has in the past. Now, I've seen flashes of brilliance, and I've seen what I loved about what the Kings did early on in the season was they came out with, if it wasn't 48 minutes of effort, the least it was 45. It was full effort all the time. The Kings did not give full effort in every single game in this road trip, and that was extremely discouraging to me. Yes, you're going to have bad games. Yes, you're going to have tired legs at times. But I don't think that being tired on the road in an Eastern Conference road trip is a valid excuse for effort. Is talent a valid excuse for effort? No, not even that. But it is a valid excuse for being tired on the road. So both translate into one another, if that makes sense. But ultimately, effort doesn't have to be taught, and effort doesn't rely on your talent level. It's just how hard you play. And so many times on this road trip, Leo, the effort just wasn't there, and it was extremely discouraging.
I disagree with you because I feel like it was in the effort. In the first game, there was a lot of effort, and it just happened that the Hawks were just a better team that night. Rudy Gay and DeMarcus Cousins were in foul trouble the entire second half. They had 5 fouls in the third quarter, which really put the team in a tough predicament. In the second game, they really, in reality, if you want to keep things real, they should have won that game, and they really won that game if it wasn't for that fake call from that referee. So that right there really changed the complexion of the entire road trip, in my opinion, because it wasn't, people think about moral victories. That was really a moral loss, in my opinion. And they would have won the Magic game, which they were competitive, and the effort was there, in my opinion. But the lack of execution and the fact that they were super sloppy that game, that really hurt that team that game, because they just couldn't contain them in transition. And, that led to a lot of easy buckets for the Magic. And the Bucks game, it was just a poop in the bed, which it happens. So, and then, of course, they won the game in Toronto. And to me, that was full effort. Rudy Gay coming back. So to me, it wasn't effort. It was just a lack of execution and a lack of inexperience playing together. And, I know you don't want to hear that, and many fans don't want to hear that, but I truly believe that, because last year it didn't take till I think the new year, 2016, until this team was competitive and they were in the 9th, 8th seed, because they played 25, 30 games together. It's going to take the same thing this year. It's a barometer. We can't expect greatness, even though Dave Joerger is a head coach. Dave Joerger started 3-6 last year, and I think it was like 2-6 his first year as a head coach of the Grizzlies. So it's going to take some time, Matt.
I understand where you're coming from in that, and I can appreciate what you're saying in terms of giving the team time. Performances like that were in Milwaukee are inexcusable. Games that, if that was the second night of a back-to-back, you absolutely can have at least that excuse or the understanding of coming out that flat. The Kings were awful, and whether or not Rudy Gay's that big of a piece, it should not be an excuse to give up 117 points. There were competitive moments in all 5 of these games by the Kings, maybe not anything in the Milwaukee game, but certainly in the Miami game. That game came down to the wire, was super competitive at the end. Yes, the Kings were almost pretty much cheated out of a victory by the officiating. It sucks because you don't want to use that as an excuse, because you never want to blame an official for a game. That one, it's very hard not to. But what I'm talking about is just solid 48 minutes of hustle, and there were so many spurts, especially in that Orlando Magic game. I don't think the final score of that Magic game tells the whole tale of the story. 102-94 was the final score of that. DeMarcus Cousins was the only one on the floor looking like he wanted to do anything or could do anything the right way. I understand Matt Barnes is playing hurt a lot, so I give him a little bit of a pass. But other than that, defensively, the team looked really, really flat. I just wasn't seeing that effort and that hustle and that intensity, and it was extremely frustrating to watch. And I know it was extremely frustrating for Dave Yeager as well, because he was talking about getting his guys to rotate and getting his guys to move and just make that extra step and give that extra burst. And that extra burst is what you get from winning teams. And the Kings weren't willing to give that extra burst. And that's a problem in my mind.
I want to use the analogy of our photo editor, Manny Basulto. He said that NFL teams in the beginning of the year have a lot of penalties. And if you analyze that and you put that in basketball terms, the Kings have been creating lots of turnovers. And those are things that you're going to have because you have lots of new pieces. So I like that analogy a lot, because that game specifically against the Magic, DeMarcus Cousins, for the first time in my life, I have never seen him miss rebounds. The ball was just coming out of his hands. I mean, he has the softest hands in the NBA. Jerry Reynolds always, praises him for having excellent hands. And that game, it was unheard of. Like, he wasn't just, I don't think it was effort. I just feel like it was lack of execution. It was lack of concentration more than effort. And that game, everyone was sloppy, and it's unfortunate, but you're going to have those type of nights, especially when the team is just pretty brand new to everything, and they don't know how they play. They don't really know where their good spots are yet, and it's going to happen. And again, you think it's effort. I think it was lack of execution, and I just feel like it's part of them not having team chemistry.
Well, ultimately, in the long run, the Sacramento Kings return home after a 1-4 road trip. Certainly disappointing. I expected a 2-3 road trip at the absolute worst. So, fortunately enough, they were able to get that Toronto win, because it looked really, especially after that Milwaukee game, it looked like they were going to go 0-5. So to pick up one win and to bring that momentum back home is certainly encouraging, especially when you're looking at the next few games that the Sacramento Kings are going to have at home. Particularly, you're looking at the Kings hosting the New Orleans Pelicans tomorrow night, and then the LA Lakers on Thursday night. The Lakers have been playing well. Luke Walton is certainly doing the right things there so far. They're still not a good team. The Kings should still be able to beat them handily. The New Orleans Pelicans are a mess of injuries and low expectation. If the Kings drop both of these games, it's a disaster. If they drop one, it's disappointing. In all likelihood, they should win both of these games, and that gives them a really, really good opportunity to put together a 3-game win streak and get themselves back close to that 500 mark before they leave for Portland.
It's going to be very interesting, Matt. I want to see consistency from our point guards in terms of shooting. Ty Lawson was very good at home as far as scoring the ball. I loved how he played last game, where he facilitated 11 assists. I think he had 2 or 3 turnovers, but he shot the ball 3 times, which you can say that he's passive, but in my opinion, he's playing the role the right way. And when you have a scoring 1-2 punch with him and Collison now, it's going to be fun to watch, and I can't wait to watch that. And I was brought to the attention that neither player is a very good 3-point shooter, but Mike Conley Jr. wasn't a great shooter either. I think he is a 37% shooter for his career, and I just feel like lots of fans want a system where you have shooters around DeMarcus Cousins. First and foremost, you have to build and identify who you are as a team. And the Kings are a defensive-minded team. So defense is a priority, and defense should be first before we start talking shooters and really building a team on offense. Right now, my biggest concern is the team getting back on defense and rebounding the ball.
And I think that is a good concern to have, especially on the defensive end, because ultimately that's where the success starts with this team, is defensively. You worry if teams are scoring on you quickly, and especially it was rebounds and second chance points that really haunted the Kings a lot on this road trip, which was very, very disappointing. One of the reasons for that is you're not getting any rebound production out of Willie Cauley-Stein, which is really concerning. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit, because he just looks lost on the floor, which is terrifying to see, because he, especially towards the end of last season, just looked like he was on the up and up and was looking so well and was super aggressive. Now just doesn't look like he knows where to be on the court. But returning to what you're talking about the defensive end of the floor, that's where it's going to have to start for the Sacramento Kings. They're not an offensive juggernaut by any means. They have a juggernaut in DeMarcus Cousins who will bully you down low, but everybody knows where the ball is going about 90% of the time on the offensive end of the floor with the Sacramento Kings. It's going down low to DeMarcus Cousins. Now, he does have a nice counterpiece in Rudy Gay to be able to hit the mid-range shot or attack the basket or even hit the outside shot when he needs to. But it's pretty clear the Kings are an inside-out team. Where they can be effective offensively is in the open court. And you lost a lot of that on this road trip as teams were really starting to slow the Kings down. The half-court defense is better for the Kings, but offensively they struggle if they're not getting out in the open court and getting stops and steals and outlet rebounds, especially when you have players like Ty Lawson running the point and then Darren Collison, who's going to come back. Two of the fastest guards in the NBA. Whether or not they're good at finishing at the rim, you need to utilize their speed in the open court, and that comes off of getting rebounds after defensive stops or getting steals or blocking shots, and the Kings drifted away from that a little bit. If they hunker down, I mean, you look at the win that they got against the Toronto Raptors. They held them to 91 points. If they were able to hold the Orlando Magic to what the average was that we wanted to see this season, 94, 95 points, it would have been a much closer game. Atlanta scores over 100. Miami scores over 100, even though that game did go to overtime. Those games where you're allowing a team to score over 100 points is where the Kings are going to get in trouble, because just consistently they're not going to be able to score that much. I mean, look at the point totals that they have. 95 against Atlanta, 96 against the Miami Heat, 94 against the Orlando Magic, 91 against the Milwaukee Bucks, and then 96 in their win against Toronto. Consistently in the low to mid-90s, that's where you can expect this team offensively to be. So defensively, you have to match that and hold them to the low 90s or even the high 80s if you can. That's the only way the Kings are going to win games, in my opinion. So when the defense isn't there, I have a hard time seeing the Kings pulling one out.
And I think with the return of Darren Collison, you're going to see Garrett Temple move down to the shooting guard position, because he's been playing a lot of backup point guard. So his natural position is the shooting guard position, which is where I feel he's the best at. And then, so now you can start Darren Collison and bring him on with Garrett Temple. Start Ty Lawson and have Arron Afflalo as your starting backcourt. You bring in pretty much your 6th and 7th man off the bench, which I think is great, and it just gives this team a lot more depth coming off the bench and a scoring punch and a defensive intensity where, like the game in Toronto, they went to the full court press, right? Where I think that's where the game changed late in the first quarter. It got them back into the game, and that's something that we should be accustomed to as the season progresses, because you implement those things when they are needed. And Dave Yeager at that point said, you know what, I'm going to risk it, and if I get steals or if I can just chip some seconds off the clock, that's going to be great. And it worked. The Kings were down by 10, and then at the end of the first quarter, they trailed by 3. And that's how they set the tone defensively. And after that, the Raptors couldn't really, get over that hump, because the Kings pretty much trickled down on defense, and they only allowed 91 points, which you're right. If they want to win games this year, it's going to be 91 to 94 points a game.
And and unfortunately, it really is the fact of the matter, and it's something that's unusual in today's NBA, because NBA is such a scoring league, and you have so many great teams like I almost said Orlando Magic, like the Golden State Warriors, teams like that are supposed to put up a lot of points. I mean, just look at the Houston Rockets. Their sole purpose in life is to score so many points on you that you have no possible chance to catch up with them, even though they're not going to play a lick of defense. That's just the way this league is going. So the Sacramento Kings are kind of fighting somewhat of not necessarily a losing battle, but an unusual battle with having their go-to guy offensively be a big man down low, more of that slow down the pace, ground and pound with a decent amount of shooters, but not a lot. We've gotten used to, over this 10-year drought, seeing the Kings be up in the top half, if not the top 10 of the league in offense and in shooting. That just isn't the case anymore for this team, and that's okay, because even when the Kings were that good offensively, they weren't winning any games because their defense was so bad. Defense wins games, and every single pro, every single coach, every single analyst will tell you defense wins games in the long run. And you look at some of the biggest games in the NBA Finals from last year, in the NBA playoffs from last year, success came when teams were able to hold their opponents to low point totals and then get out on the fast break, and that's how they were able to score their points. The fast break is one of the most effective ways of scoring in the NBA today, and it's one of those ways that you can secretly put up a lot of points because you're not using much time on the clock, but you're not having to shoot a lot of three-pointers or put up crazy shot numbers or shot totals in order to do it. I really think the fast break defensively and their transition offense is going to be something that I hope Dave Joerger really tries to implement, especially with Darren Collison coming back. And that leads us to a great conversation about Darren Collison, because you brought it up, whether or not Ty Lawson or Darren Collison should be your starter as soon as he comes back here, which Collison does make his return tomorrow night against the New Orleans Pelicans. I released an article. You can check it out right now on cowbellkingdom.com. And I say, and I firmly believe, and a lot of people disagree with this, and that's okay, but I firmly believe that Darren Collison will be at his best for this team, and the team will benefit from Collison most if he comes off the bench, and not just for the first 3 or 4 games when he gets his legs back under him. I'm talking permanently, unless there's an injury or a complete major fall off by Ty Lawson. And before I dig more into that, Leo, do you agree or do you disagree?
I agree, Matt. And it's simple. Darren Collison arguably is the 3rd best scorer on this team. If you want to count Afflalo as our 3rd, you can, but he struggled early on, so I'm going to call Collison and his 15 points a night the 3rd best scorer on this team. And I like those 15 points to come off my bench and really bring that extra push when the team lacks scoring in the starting lineup. So if the team has a lackadaisical start, I want this team and I want this player to lead the second unit and eventually end the game, because that's where I think that's what I think he's gonna do. He's gonna end the game in crunch time and really solidify that bench. So really put his second unit in better positions to score, because when Garrett Temple comes into the game, he tends to slow the game down as opposed to really speed the game up, just like how Ty Lawson has it, where he dribbles and then he dribble penetrates and he gives the ball up for very good assists. I think Ty Lawson's doing an excellent job, and he's such an underrated passer. I don't think he gets enough credit for that, and I like that, because Ty Lawson would be playing with Rudy Gay, Afflalo, and DeMarcus Cousins, as you stated it in your article. So I like that 1-2-3 punch with a pass first point guard and this year's Ty Lawson. I know Ty Lawson is known for scoring when he was at his best, but he has really trickled down and really made passing an emphasis and defense an emphasis, because Coach Joerger has gotten the best out of him early on, and I think it's going to continue, because he is on a contract where he needs to perform, because if not, he will be out the league. So I like Collison and Temple coming off my bench and really solidifying that second unit.
Want to apologize, as I'm aware of the lack of quality from my particular camera. It's just being lost in the connection between myself and Leo, something that we will address in the future. So appreciate those who have pointed it out to us and that are sticking through it. It's okay. You don't want to see my ugly mug in HD or full definition anyway. But it's the voices that are important, and we understand that quality is translating through just fine, which is great. And for those who are listening to the podcast and not watching, hey, you don't even care. Moving on, I totally agree with what you said. I believe that Ty Lawson is very underrated as a passer, and I believe a lot of people are looking at his shooting percentage and his 6 points per game and thinking that he hasn't been effective as the Kings point guard so far. I had a debate with Dave Deuce Mason, formerly of KHDK, now of the Deuce and Mo podcast, and one of the engineers and producers actually of Sacramento Kings radio. And he and I went back and forth, and he was in the majority, which was, Lawson is not putting up the numbers that you would expect or want out of your starting point guard. In today's NBA, on a team like the Golden State Warriors, or when comparing to those teams, or comparing to the Portland Timberwolves, dear Lord, Portland Trailblazers with Damian Lillard, or even the Timberwolves with, I suppose, Ricky Rubio or maybe eventually Chris Dunn. He's not putting up the numbers that you would like to see to translate to, wow, oh my gosh, eyes pop, all-star. But that's okay, because that's not what you need out of Ty Lawson. Now that Darren Collison is back, Lawson just needs to be an efficient passer and someone who can give you 6 to 8 points a game, who takes care of the basketball and uses his speed. And that's what I cited in the article as what he does effectively, because the fact of the matter is, in the starting unit right now, Ty Lawson is maybe the fourth option, sometimes even the fifth option to score offensively. However, that doesn't mean he's useless offensively, because he's used his speed time and time again to get that quick first step, to draw defenders in, and to give good looks to Arron Afflalo, to Rudy Gay. I think Rudy Gay has probably benefited the most from having Ty Lawson on the floor, because Lawson has been able to work the ball to him for that mid-range jumper so much, and then Lawson and DeMarcus Cousins seem to be working well together as well in pick and roll and pick and pop settings. That's what you want, and that's okay to keep with Ty Lawson as your starter. Now, if you put Darren Collison as your starter, no doubt that he's a 10 times better offensive player than Lawson is right now. Maybe not in the past when Lawson was in Denver, but currently right now for this team, Collison is going to be a better offensive player. That's why you want him off the bench, and that's where people don't understand it. Shouldn't your best scoring point guard, shouldn't your best point guard overall be your starter? In many cases, yes. But for this team, I don't think so. I think Collison would be at his best coming off the bench, being the leader of that second unit, which if he does start in that second unit or come off the bench with that second unit, it would be him, Garrett Temple at the 2, Matt Barnes at the 3, and then either Anthony Tolliver and Willie Cauley-Stein at the 4 and 5, or you could go small and have Omri Caspi at the 4 and then Anthony Tolliver at the 5, depending upon how well Willie Cauley-Stein is playing. I like that idea because instantly there's a lot more scoring on that lineup. That we've seen that lineup be effective a lot defensively, and it's been great, but we worry about losing offense. If Ty Lawson is the leader of that lineup, he's expected to do more scoring, which I don't like personally. I would much rather see Darren Collison in that spot. And then the crucial point is, just because he's not starting doesn't mean he's not going to be on the floor at the end of the games. And I know you touched on that, Leo.
I want to clarify something for fans, though. The reason why Ty Lawson isn't as effective offensively is not because he's not capable of doing it, because he is. They're playing a high post offense where in the starting unit the offense revolves around DeMarcus Cousins. And Ty's good days or good years in Denver, he was the go-to guy in that offense, and the ball was in his hands about 90% of the game. So by default, you're going to have better stats and you're going to put up more points because that team wanted Ty Lawson to score. And as you stated, on any given night, Ty Lawson can put up 15 to 20 points a game because he is capable of doing that. But Collison coming off the bench gives him the green light to be that explosive scoring guard, not a Jamal Crawford type player, but a guy that can set up his teammates, play some good defense, pressure the opposing point guard, and just ultimately score the ball. But I disagree in the sense that I think he's just as good as a scorer, but that's not his role. And in this offense, his role is to really facilitate the ball, and I like that from Ty Lawson because he is finally understanding that in order for him to stay in this league, he has to play a role. And last year, he struggled playing off the ball when he played with James Harden and when he played with who was it in Indiana? I think it was Paul George, but someone else, Monte Ellis, because Monte Ellis had the ball a lot of the time, so he had to play off of him and really shoot the ball. Which he's not a shooter; he is a scorer. He's a guy that dribble penetrates. Either he goes up for a layup or he passes out to his teammates. And I like that about Ty Lawson. So I like him in the starting lineup, and I like how he has chemistry with Arron Afflalo already from his previous years in Denver.
But I'm going to go back to what you said. He's not a shooter. He's a scorer. And yes, he is capable of scoring, but where he's effective is around the rim within 15, maybe even 12 feet. He's got a decent mid-range jumper. He's really good from his side pop from like 6 to 8 feet. But around the rim is where he's an effective scorer, and a lot of his points come from in the fast break. And that's what I'm saying. If the Kings are able to use him and his speed in the fast break, he could be a lot more of an effective scorer. But exactly what you said, the Kings don't need him to be an effective scorer because that's not his role when he's on the floor with Rudy Gay, DeMarcus Cousins, and Arron Afflalo. Now, if he was on the floor with that bench unit, with Matt Barnes, with Ben McLemore or Garrett Temple, he would need to be more of a scorer, and that just doesn't suit him, in my opinion, for the Sacramento Kings. I would rather than put Darren Collison in that spot, allow Lawson to continue to do what he does with that starting unit, and then when you need some big buckets or some threes or some production offensively late in the game, that's when you have Darren Collison playing, because he should be the guy closing out the games at that point guard spot. And one of the things I said in the article, I also said on a former podcast, but I think it's important for us as fans and to even some of the players themselves to get into their head, is there's only 2 things or maybe even 3 things that being a starter guarantees you. 1, you're going to be on the floor when the official first throws the ball up in the air. Number 2, you might get your name on the Jumbotron, or you'll come out to a sea of boos and really dorky music, depending upon if you're on the road or at home. And 3, there's so much more expectation on your shoulders as a starter. If Darren Collison is the starting point guard for the Sacramento Kings, all of a sudden the expectation falls upon him that he has to be the go-to outside shooter and scorer, and that's not necessary for the starting point guard of this team when you've got players like DeMarcus Cousins and Rudy Gay. That's why I think he can be sneaky good if you can use him as a 6th man. A lot of people made comparisons to what Bobby Jackson was back in the day, maybe even Jason Terry. Collison has the capability of doing that, and I like the idea of him doing that with the second unit because you get more scoring and you don't lose a lot of defense.
Agreed 100%, Matt. And pretty much going back to what you said, if you put Ty Lawson in transition, I think he's better than Collison in transition. But the Kings don't play like George Karl's teams do.
Right.
The Kings are a slow it down team, set the tone on defense, and just grind out some games. At least that's what they are when they win games.
Guys, we want to let you know that if you're a basketball fan or you simply love the Sacramento Kings, hoopcats.com is the place to go when it comes to NBA autographs, memorabilia, and trading cards. That's right. If you want to sign DeMarcus Cousins or Willie Cauley-Stein rookie card, hoopcats.com has got them right now for you. Make sure to like their Instagram page, and make sure you ask for the CK special. I'm tripping all over my tongue here tonight. I'm just excited to have Sacramento Kings basketball here back in Sacramento after what was a very draining and exhausting road trip. And I tell you what else has been draining and exhausting and frustrating, especially for me, and I know Coach Yeager has addressed it in recent interviews, but the play of Arron Afflalo as of late. And I think the Kings' offensive struggles and really struggles to be in these games fall a lot upon his shoulders. I put out an article before the season started that Arron Afflalo would be the key to the
I think we lost Matt, but I'm going to continue what he was saying. He was saying that he believed that Arron Afflalo should be the third option for the Sacramento Kings because he's that talented and he's capable of being that guy. So we're going to try to get Matt back on, but that's really what he was trying to say. And when Arron Afflalo is at his best, the Kings are very good. So I think he's back. Turn your mic on, buddy.
Oh, boy. I just don't worry about it. I just went to take a nap, so you don't have to worry. My point wasn't that important anyway. But all I saw was the screen go black, and well, hey, what do you know? Well, roller coaster rides. I don't know where you last heard my point, but to wrap it up and put a quick bow on it, if Arron Afflalo is not effective on the offensive end of the floor, the Kings are going to have a tough time winning games. Hey, Leo, back to you.
That's pretty much what I said. I said Matt was going to say that Arron Afflalo should be the third option because he is capable of doing that because he's very talented. And when Arron Afflalo is at his best, the Kings are at their best. and he was playing exceptional defense on the number one scorer in the NBA, in DeMar DeRozan. So when you're getting that type of production on defense and 12 to 15 points from Afflalo, I love it.
And a lot of people need to take it easy and think that Afflalo is a bust or Afflalo is not.
He's not Marco Bellinelli.
That's very true. And thank God he's not, because even when he's going through the shooting slump, he is still able to play solid defense. That's why he's found himself on the floor. It's about getting looks, and it's about getting the right touches for Afflalo right now, because he is getting good shots, just the stroke is not there. It will come around. Slowly it will come around, as I believe it will come around for one Willie Cauley-Stein. And Willie has fought a very steep uphill battle so far this season. A lot of people are getting very, very worried. I've already heard the dreaded B word, bust, coming out there just based off of these first 8 games of the season. It's sad, it's discouraging, but he's going to be okay. I firmly believe that, because Willie works really, really hard. He's super athletic. Jaeger is working hard with him all the time. I know that for a fact, because Jaeger has said it repeatedly over and over again, as reporters have been constantly pestering him about the play of Willie Cauley-Stein. The problem with Willie right now is the same problem that Ben McLemore had in his first couple of years. Willie doesn't look like he knows where he belongs on the floor right now. He's not aggressive, because it seems like he's afraid of getting in other people's way, particularly when he's on the floor with DeMarcus Cousins. Now, Cousins is a glass eater, and Cousins is going to be the big body down there to get those rebounds, but that doesn't mean we don't want Willie being just as effective down there. And I don't know if it's been just the first step or if he's been caught watching, but Willie, in so many possessions, when the shot is going up, he is not even in the key to get a chance at an offensive or defensive rebound. And with someone with the length of Willie Cauley-Stein, no, he doesn't have the girth necessarily to battle with some of the NBA bigs, but his length gives him the edge, and so does his athleticism to get up and get near the rim with his leaping ability. We haven't seen that so far this season, and I think it just comes to just a lack of confidence and just a general confusion of, where am I supposed to be on the floor?
It's a lack of confidence, and in my opinion, it's a lack of talent on the offensive end. It's a lack of instinct more than anything, because his knock coming out of Kentucky was he's not a very good rebounder. He played next to Cat. He played, I think, 1 year with DeMarcus Cousins, if I'm not mistaken, or he came after DeMarcus or something like that. But he's always played with a good big man who was a good rebounder. He's never been a good rebounder. He just doesn't have those instincts. And I broke down film on him. I literally stopped, played, and I kept doing that. And he just doesn't crash the boards. He just looks lost. And as you stated earlier, he's the one player who I can say hasn't really put the effort into these games, because one thing is being lost and inefficient on the offensive end. Another thing is to really lack effort, and I think that's where we stand with Willie Cauley-Stein. You know, even a guy like Reggie Evans, who was inept on offense, you have to be able to just affect the game in different areas. You are 7 feet tall. You jump higher than everyone else. You should be able to grab a rebound. He also has bad hands, which is important to note. Not as bad as Thomas Robinson's hands, but he does have bad hands, and that's something of a concern. And then when you watch Emmanuel Mudiay score 30 points and some crazy and like 8-10 assists, then it's tough on fans not to use the buzzword. But, you know, fans are going to be fans, and they're going to be impatient. But I'm not very encouraged of what I've seen from Willie Cauley-Stein. I know he put out a tweet saying that if you're not with me right now, don't be with me when I'm shining, or something like that, right?
When I'm not flying high, I think is what he said.
Yeah, and I'm not into those quotes either, because, dude, in 75 minutes, you had about 17 points and about 5 rebounds. So don't come at me with, you know, trash. And that's what that is. And I love him as a person and as a human being, but please don't say things like that, because you haven't proven anything in this league. And everything you do offensively is forced. And I know this sounds harsh, but you really need to work on your strength and play your role on this team. just play your role, Willie, and everything's going to be fine. You are capable of being a defensive force, but right now there is a reason why Kosta Koufos is playing, because Kosta Koufos per 36 minutes is even a better rebounder than DeMarcus Cousins, believe it or not. And that's why he's playing. Willie Cauley-Stein is on the bottom of pretty much everyone on this team. And that's really sad to see because he is 7 feet tall.
And if you want to bust or use the bust conversation, if you're Willie Cauley-Stein, if you want to use that to your advantage in terms of motivation or in terms of just lighting a fire under your butt to get yourself going, then absolutely by all means do that. And that may be what he was trying to do or trying to show that he's doing by putting that out on Twitter. The bottom line is what we love the most about Willie Cauley-Stein we haven't seen yet this season, and that's the hustle and that's the intensity. Yeah. Whether Willie liked his system or not, whether he liked playing for George Karl, which it didn't seem like he did, or not, he still gave effort and he still was hustling and he was playing the game and he was having fun. I haven't seen that yet so far this season because he looks just timid. And it looks like, you know what it looks like, Leo, is it looks like he's thinking too much. Yeah. You would almost want someone with his athleticism and his natural ability. You want him to be athletic and you want him to just do and go, see the ball, get the ball. And to be an effective rebounder in the NBA, that's what you have to do. Some of it's positioning, and some of the best are able to read balls off the rim or off even the hands of the shooter and recognize, okay, I think this is where the ball is going to go, so I got to get in that position. But the other half of it is just seeing a orange sphere and saying, I'm getting that. And we haven't seen that out of Willie Cauley-Stein, nor have we seen what I loved him for last year, which was Cauley-Stein would get a rebound or a block or maybe not even be a part of the play. But when the Kings got out on transition, here was a big 7-foot gazelle just working his way up the court to get back on the offensive end to either draw in a crowd or get in position for an offensive rebound or be available for an alley-oop. That intensity isn't there with Willie. And I don't know if it's just he's flat, but I really think what it is he's just thinking too much. And he needs to go back to letting the game come naturally to him. And now that he's facing guys like Anthony Davis in this next game against the Pelicans and then having the Lakers after that, these are two very good opportunities for Willie to get, even if it's only 10, 12, 15 minutes a game, just use those minutes effectively, get back to playing the game that you know how to play, and don't worry so much about being in the right position, but play hard, be a high-intensity guy that you are, be a youngin who's not afraid of making mistakes, and you will be a lot more effective than you've already been.
You know what I want to do is I want to bring on Elston Turner on the show and ask him those questions where, hey, I'm sure the coaches are constantly breaking film down for him and saying, Willie Cauley-Stein, I need you to crash the boards in this particular play. Please crash the boards. This is your role. This is your job. This is your job. Okay, so you set the screen up high. You get your player open. Don't watch Ben McLemore just shoot the ball because there is no guarantee that he makes the shot. Right. So go crash the board. That is your job. You are 7 feet tall. I want those questions answered. Are these coaches working with him, constantly reminding him and guiding him in the right direction to accomplish these things? I'm sure they are, but I want to hear it from Elston Turner. And I'm hoping within the next week or a couple of days to have him on the show and really ask him these questions. Are they helping them grow and really, become that player that fans and this organization wants him to be? Because I feel like he had false expectations a little bit about being involved a lot more in this offense and being something that he's never been, which is in the high post and being DeMarcus's shadow per se, and really the offense going through him with the second unit. He's not that guy. His offense is forced, and he should be that guy that just gets garbage buckets, plays good defense, and affects the game on the defensive end. That is who he is. So maybe he had false expectations of working on his jump shot when he should have been working on his strength.
And DeAndre Jordan's made an all-star caliber career out of doing that. DeAndre's jump shot is disgusting. It's horrible.
It's horrible.
It always has been. But where he is effective is because he knows what he's out there to do. He's out there to get rebounds. He's out there to get garbage buckets. He can leap out of the gym so you can get a lob up to him. Willie Cauley-Stein can do the same thing if he's aggressive enough. And if you're DeAndre Jordan, you know that where I'm most effective is going to be just hustling and using my size and using my length and using my athleticism to the advantage of my team as a whole. That's what Willie Cauley-Stein needs to do. That's the mindset that he needs to bring in is I'm not out here to put up big numbers and be a star. I'm out here to help my team any way that I can. And he absolutely can.
Look at Steven Adams.
Yeah.
He should look up to Steven Adams and get paid, because if you're 7 feet tall and you can rebound and block shots, you will be in this game, in this league, a long time, and you will get paid, Mr. Young Trill.
I mean, look at how big of a force Serge Ibaka. He became a superstar in 2 years in Oklahoma City because of his block shot ability. Serge Ibaka is nowhere near as effective of a big man as DeMarcus Cousins is, yet they're getting paid similar contracts, and Ibaka's still turning heads around the league because of his ability to protect the rim, because of his aggressiveness at getting rebounds, and then he's added an outside shot to his game. Willie doesn't necessarily have to do that, but it's ultimately, and this is a problem that I think a lot of young players fall into, is do what you're good at. Do what you were drafted to do. Don't listen to the critic that says, oh, his offensive game isn't that good, so all you're doing is putting in all the work to trying to prove that I can hit a turnaround jumper now, and offensively I'm not a liability. Don't worry about that. You were drafted into the NBA. You were brought into Kentucky because you were athletic, you were a phenomenal rebounder, and a great shot blocker whose game could translate to the NBA really, really well. Do that for the Sacramento Kings, and he will be just fine.
Willie, do that, Willie, and you're going to be just fine. I had this conversation with our photo editor, right, and with Emmanuel, and that's all we talk about. Like, Willie, just be you. At least put the effort in, and fans will love you for that. And that's something that we haven't seen this season. Right. It's unfortunate because in year 2, you're supposed to improve upon year 1, and that's something that in the first 8 games he has regressed. But again, it's too early to tell. He needs more playing time. But at the same time, it's if you're not going to rebound for me, I'm not going to put you out there, man.
Well, boy, there's just still plenty to talk about here, and we're going to translate a little into this upcoming homestand that the Kings are going to have there. It's separated by one random trip to Portland, the second night of a back-to-back. Hey, let's all go up to Oregon for a night. But the Kings will do that as they will take on the Portland Trailblazers. That game is three games from now. It'll be on this Friday, the 11th of November. But before we get into that conversation, we want to let you know that if you're a Kings fan or a Reno Bighorns fan, and I know we had a couple of Reno Bighorns fans talking in the chat of our live show currently. If you're looking to watch your Kings rookies play with the Reno Bighorns this season, grab life by the horns and visit Don Ware's Reno Dodge dealership and earn big-time savings on your next 2016 Dodge Ram. Be sure to ask for the CK special to get 20% off of MSRP, and with that purchase, or with the purchase of a new or used vehicle, you will receive a 5-day, 4-night cruise certificate for 2 to Mexico, the Bahamas, or the Western Caribbean. Are you kidding me? How great of a deal is that? It doesn't get any better than that, ladies and gents. Watching basketball, driving a Dodge Ram, and going on a terrific cruise, it's what grabbing the life by the Reno Bighorns is all about. Little disclaimer for you. Cruise certificate recipient is responsible for port charges, taxes, customs, and fulfillment fees. Be sure to see cruise certificate for full details. But you're going to want to take advantage of that offer. It's astounding, and I don't know what order I would put it in. New car, Reno Bighorns and Kings basketball, and a cruise. I might put it car, cruise, Kings, depending upon who they're playing. Sorry, Kings, hate to do that to you, but car sounds great. Cruise sounds wonderful. Kings, if they win, sound awesome too. But hey, that's a great deal.
Take your girlfriend on the cruise, Matt. Go buy a car from Don Ware's Dodge dealership.
Don't tell her that. She's been wanting to go on a cruise for a while, and I mean, my wallet is already crying and empty as it is. Boy, oh boy. Let's add a cruise to the deal and a new car. Hey, whatever. Bank loans. But moving on, we've got lots to look forward to as a majority of the next few games for the Sacramento Kings will be played in Sacramento in the Golden One Center. It begins, like we mentioned, with the Pelicans tomorrow night. Then you have the Lakers on Thursday night, the Portland Trailblazers on Friday night. And then, hey, guess who's back again already? Next week, next Wednesday, it's the San Antonio Spurs in town. So, hey, if we didn't like them one dose, how about 2? As if Kawhi Leonard wasn't scary enough. We want him again. Important thing to note, though, as I just noticed this, and I think it's great, Leo, is the Kings will play the Portland Trailblazers on Friday. Then they will return home that night, and then they don't play a game until Wednesday. So they're going to be home during all that time. That is great opportunity if you're Dave Yeager and the Kings to get not only some rest, because you're probably going to want to take maybe half a day or a day in that time to just rest yourself and take a much needed and well-deserved day off. But there's also going to be the first real opportunity for practice time for this team, which they haven't gotten yet this season. A real good opportunity for Dave Yeager to implement some of the changes that he wants to see. And that time can be crucial for guys like Willie Cauley-Stein, Ben McLemore, and those players who are just on the fence really trying to figure their way.
Absolutely. And, of course, we will be there providing that frontline coverage, probably you and me and Emmanuel. But I can't wait for that because by then we'll know where this team really stands as far as who the rotation is. Last game we saw a very shortened rotation where Willie Cauley-Stein and Ben McLemore didn't play. Jordan Farmar got most of the minutes, and that person will be Darren Collison. So we pretty much saw what we're going to watch tomorrow night. A shortened rotation of Collison and Ty Lawson. And today the Kings waived Jordan Farmar again, which I saw coming, and I think we're the first. Yeah, we were the first ones to put that out there. So, it's unfortunate for Jordan, but let's just call it the way it is. Ty Lawson and Darren Collison are better than he is, which is why Farmar was a fourth resort with the Grizzlies last year and why he's always a third-string point guard. I like him. I like his shooting ability, but he is also at times a liability on defense.
And full props to Farmar for being the professional that he is, knowing that he was supposed to come in here and it was only going to be temporary and that he was just going to work hard and be a quick fix for now. He recognizes that he's obviously trying to keep his career going as much as he can. He's going to try and be as effective as he can on whatever roster that he's on so that he can get another contract and continue to have a chance at a career. But a consummate professional, a guy that was willing to come in, was ready to work. He was up, cheering, coaching, working with the youngins, and then right up there with the veterans, just doing what he's supposed to do. So big props to Farmar. It's unfortunate that we didn't get to see him here in Sacramento beyond any kind of preseason stuff because he would have been someone who I would have enjoyed talking to, and I know the fans would have enjoyed just seeing how he interacts in person with his teammates and just a consummate professional. So you have to respect and appreciate Mr. Farmar for all of that. But you're absolutely right, Leo. Unfortunately, the depth of this team is just too high, and he is going to be your fourth option behind Collison, Lawson, and Temple. And then eventually when Isaiah Cousins gets some run, if he does get some run after his time in Reno, Isaiah Cousins, I believe, would jump on a higher rung of that ladder than Mr. Farmar would. So appreciate Jordan for what he does. Unfortunately, his career seems to be on the tail end. He was a very, very good, solid role player in his time, and he did what he was supposed to do for the Sacramento Kings, and you have to absolutely appreciate that.
And he hit big shots last night.
Yeah, he did. No, absolutely.
And that's something that you should be proud of. He can ball, but it's just a matter of opportunity. And with the Kings, you have two guys that are solidified players in this league, and that they're going to get the nod over you. So just from a playing time standpoint, he's not going to get much playing time.
So looking at these next three games that the Kings are playing, Leo, that they're playing this week, the Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday games against the Pelicans, Lakers, and then at Portland for a matchup with the Trailblazers, I'm looking at that and I'm saying if you are worse than 2-1, it's a disappointing 3-game stand. If you are 3-0, you're ecstatic, especially if you're able to beat the Trailblazers in Portland, which is very unlikely. But then again, we didn't expect them to win in Toronto against the Raptors. But if you're 0-3 or even 1-2, you're certainly disappointed. I'm wondering if you agree with that.
I agree 100%. And again, I don't see them beating the Blazers only because they really give the Kings fits, and they don't really match up well. They didn't match up well last year. And if you want to be fair, this team is completely new as far as the role players and the people that they have this year, because now you can put a Garrett Temple on a Dame Dalla Lillard and then put Arron Afflalo and CJ McCollum. So from that standpoint, the Kings will be a lot better. A lot of those games were blowouts last year, so expect the Kings to be competitive. But as far as winning, I'm not too high on them winning, but you never know because it's the NBA, and on any given night, these guys can go cold, and especially that team. The Blazers live and die by the jump shot. So the Kings have a shot.
Especially if they're able to just get hands and faces and really rotate strong and just give that extra effort defensively. That's what you're going to need to do against a team like the Portland Trail Blazers. But looking at the two games before that, the Pelicans and the Lakers, those in my mind are two games that you absolutely have to get at home, because following that game against Portland, the Kings will be at home for their next 5 games, which is encouraging until you realize who the 5 opponents that they're playing. You got San Antonio on Wednesday the 16th. Then Friday you have the LA Clippers. Sunday you have the Toronto Raptors. Then the Oklahoma City Thunder. And then at the end it's the Houston Rockets. You really think they'll beat Oklahoma City? I still think you're sleeping on OKC.
It's a shoe-in W.
Well, all right. We'll go to see, but I certainly don't think so. But either way, that 5-game homestand, there's a lot of talent coming into this building. And that's a good opportunity for the Kings to really make a splash, as 4 out of those 5 are against Western Conference opponents. But that also has danger written all over it to a really, really gnarly, nasty homestand where the Kings could maybe drop 4, even 5 games if they're not too careful.
And I tell people this. The Kings are going to go on a 4 or 5 game win streak. They're going to go on another 3, 4, 5 game losing streak. This team will have lots of ups and downs because it's a relatively new team and it's a new system. So don't expect perfection from the team, guys. They're going to go on the win streak. They're going to beat the Pelicans and the Lakers, and they're going to be on a 3-game win streak. And then the fans are going to love them again. And then when they lose to the Blazers and lose to a couple of these good teams, they're going to go on the choo-choo when the season's over. They have no talent, and, all the negative Nancy's are going to come out again. But it is what it is. Expect this team to have lots of ups and downs, but more ups in my opinion, because I do expect playoffs this year.
Following that 5-game homestand against all those difficult teams, the Kings will play 12 of their next 15 games on the road. It's a very road-heavy schedule in the early going. That's why these games at home are so important to pick up to at least keep yourself in the hunt to where you're close to maybe even a little bit below 500 as you reach the midpoint of the season, because with that second half, with how loaded it is at home, that's where the Sacramento Kings can really make their run. And if they are going to be a playoff team, which you believe they are, I don't believe they will be, unfortunately. But if they are going to, that's where they're going to have to get their wins, is on the second half of the season. They're going to have to defend their home floor, and that begins tomorrow against the Pelicans, a team that you don't want to say must win this early in the season, because of course it's not must win.
But it's a must win. That
it's pretty close. I mean, it gets as close as it has to be without being an elimination game in the playoffs. This is a game just to get yourself back on track and to calm the fans down and to reestablish yourselves as somewhat of a contender or a potential contender. You have to get both of these games, the Pelicans and the Lakers. So we'll see if they can do it. That'll wrap it up for this podcast here. We thank you so much to the many people that joined us live for your comments. We've been reading them also on Twitter. So many people have been weighing in. We'll try to respond to those as much as possible, getting a lot of good questions, a lot of good feedback, not just on the podcast, but on the articles that we've released. Also, a lot of good feedback as well on our post-game show. I know a lot of people have been asking, when is that going to come back? And is it going to come back for these home games? Absolutely it will. The CK Nation post-game show after every single Sacramento Kings home game, barring some kind of disaster or injury or sickness to myself or Leo, we will try and be out there for every single game to bring you as best of analysis as possible. Also, for this particular setting for the Cowbell Kingdom podcast, we promise that, or at least I promise, we'll try and get all these kinks ironed out on my end with the quality just of the camera and of the broadcast tonight, audio-wise. Looks like things translated well. So for those who stuck it out with us, of course, we appreciate that as well. For those who are coming out to the game tomorrow night, hit me up. Let Leo know on Twitter or on Facebook. We'd love to come see you and chat with you. We love meeting you guys and talking to you in person, as we've gotten a lot of good feedback and a lot of good interaction that way. So don't be shy. Don't hesitate to do that. We absolutely love that. And then if you want to be a part of this or any future podcast, All you have to do is join the conversation, tweet at us, comment at on these kind of podcasts, message us on Facebook, join us on Cowbell Kingdom, the website even. There's so many ways to get a hold of us and so many ways to share your opinions. We love those. We soak that up. So we want to know what your thoughts would be, for example, on Willie Cauley-Stein and how he's been playing. Your thoughts on whether you would start Darren Collison over Ty Lawson or vice versa. How do you feel about this road trip, and how do you think the Kings are going to do now that they're back home for these next few weeks? We want to know. We want all of that feedback, and we absolutely love it. Leo, anything you want to say before we wrap up here?
Before we wrap it up, I'm not looking at the actual questions in the live chat. So is there a question that we can highlight that you like, Matt, that we can just answer for the fans?
As I'm scrolling through here, if you want to keep going, and I can try and pull one out of here.
Yeah, so again, guys, join the conversation. We are on Instagram. Follow us at Cowbell_Kingdom. The same goes for Twitter and Facebook. Just type in Cowbell Kingdom. We're always posting live updates with really cool graphics. Shout out to Emmanuel and Noah Williams for the great graphics that we've been putting out lately and pretty much the entire year. I think that's where we're the best at as far as visual content. But thank you guys for the support. Again, in future shows, we're gonna answer most questions because we want you guys to join the conversation. And as I'm looking at my phone, this is where on the live chat. This is on Instagram. Someone said, I think we should start Ty only for the fact our bench needs a scorer and premier ball handler like DC, who has come off the bench before and has been consistent. Our starting five has been decent. I think we should go with Willie Cauley-Stein instead of 2K, though. I agree with half of that because I don't think Cauley-Stein deserves to start over Costa.
I would absolutely agree with that. Willie Cauley-Stein 2 weeks ago at the beginning of the season, I would have agreed with you about starting Willie because I was going off of the intense and athletic Willie that we saw at the end of last season. This Willie right now clearly does not know what he's doing and does not feel comfortable enough in a system to warrant being a starter and to warrant playing significant minutes besides DeMarcus Cousins. Can he get to that point? Absolutely. Do we hope we get to that point? Absolutely. You drafted him to hopefully be a starter, if not a major minute off the bench intensity big man. Jaeger has the potential of doing that, and I know he's working towards that. But as of right now, Costa Koufos is the clear starter, and there's really no debate for who would be better than 2K at the moment. Go ahead.
Yeah. So again, you probably won't get much questions in on this show, but you can still join the conversation on Twitter, on Instagram. We have an awesome design right now that was published 30 minutes ago on the CK Instagram page with Ty Lawson and Darren Collison. But again, guys, join the conversation. You guys can contact Matt or I or Emmanuel on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're all there, and we're waiting to answer questions.
Well, I'll take us out with this question really quick from the actual comment feed of the live stream. Do you believe Arron Afflalo, this comes from a guy named Kings Fan, by the way, do you believe Arron Afflalo should have plays run for him at the beginning of games, kind of like how J.J. Redick starts out games? I think that's a phenomenal question because we've seen the Kings do that for Ben McLemore coming off of the bench, and it seemed to have helped him a lot get into his flow. I absolutely do believe that if they ran maybe not necessarily a lot of plays right out of the gate for Afflalo, but if they gave him more looks, particularly off of curls and screens off the ball when DeMarcus Cousins has the ball in the post, I think that can really get his opportunity going. And it'll also show a little confidence from the coaching staff and from the team that, hey, we're going to get you some looks early. We're going to get you to be a part of this offense right away, even though you're not necessarily the number one or number two guy. You can be very, very effective, and we need you to be very, very effective. So we're going to get you some looks and some touches early, and we're going to give you the green light. If you miss, that's okay. Keep shooting. But if you start hitting your shots, we hopefully can get you to heat up and open up some space for DeMarcus Cousins down low.
Absolutely. I love the idea of having Arron with 2 R's involved early in every single game. It's vital. Like you said, Matt, he needs to be that third option. Believe it or not, I love DC, but if we can get that production from Arron Afflalo early in the game, that's only going to set the tone in the right position for this team. Oh wait, and I have this fan saying DC should be the starter because in today's league, your point guard must be able to knock down open shots. For example, Curry or Irvin, DC can do that. Ty, not so much lately. We don't want another repeat of Rondo now. We backseated IT for DC. DC was backseated for Rondo. DC don't deserve another backseat. Those are big words.
And there are a lot of people that certainly would agree with you. Again, I don't think that him not starting is any kind of insult to him as a player. If anything, it's flattering to give him the opportunity to be the number one scorer or the go-to scorer. And again, what matters is who is on the floor when the game's on the line at crunch time. And that's where Darren Collison will be, whether he's a starter or not. People need to get past this fantasy of the starters are above everybody else. And if you're not a starter, you're pissed off and you can't be effective or you can't be a major player. Darren Collison has the talent, has the ability, and also has the attitude, which is super important. He has the attitude to be effective coming off the bench. That's my thought. Ultimately, it's up to Jaeger, and we'll see what he does on Tuesday.
We'll see what he does.
So that's going to do it for us. Again, we thank you so much for joining us and working through some of the kinks that we had to go through here on this podcast. But we're really excited, and we're really enjoying being able to bring you a live format so that we can do this kind of stuff. Get your comments and get your questions and answer them right away and have you directly in the conversation with us. For those who are listening at a later time, we love you just as much as well. You guys are phenomenal, and we see your questions and hear your questions and want to answer your questions as much as well. So don't feel like you are a premier listener or you are missing part of the show if you're not watching it live. We look to serve, and as I hit my mic, we look to branch out and be available for everybody. So you join the conversation just as much as these fine people have as we are live. But we are going to stick to this Monday format. I should have made that announcement at the beginning of the show, but it's a great time to make it now, and we'll make that announcement more on Twitter and on social media as the season goes on. But Monday is going to be your go-to day for all of our podcasts. Even if the Kings have a home game that night, we'll try and do it in the afternoon. And then if the Kings have maybe an afternoon or early evening game because of an East Coast trip, we'll almost do kind of like a post-game podcast afterwards. But Monday, unless, again, barring any kind of sickness or injury or devastation or disaster or earthquake or tornado or whatever, we will always try and bring it to you in this setting here on this Monday night. So look forward to spending all your Monday nights with us as we look forward to spending all of our Monday nights with you, Leo.
That's it, Matt. Thank you so much again for joining the Cowbell Kingdom family.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be able to speak and work with these great fans. It's a pleasure to be able to contribute to such a great podcast and such a great website that is Cowbell Kingdom. And we look forward to continue to have you along for the ride. The CK Nation post-game show is coming after Kings and Pelicans tomorrow night. Hope you can be there. Hope you can watch it either way. We look forward to seeing you then. But for right now, for my partner, Leo Beas, my name is Matt George. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been the Cowbell Kingdom podcast on cowbellkingdom.com.